Welcome to the Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today, 3 chances to win fantabulous prizes. Our Golden Age of America giveaway at 4. Our Real Deal giveaway at 4:45. And our Good News giveaway at 5:45. But before we get to any of that, time for today's Daily Dose of Adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
When I heard that the Pope died last night, I didn't have much of a big feeling about this. It's not my religion. It's, not my monkey, not my circus, as you might say, but I don't want to sound insensitive by using that terminology regarding this. I thought to myself, if some big rabbi had, God forbid, passed away, how would that affect me? And would I really want anybody else lecturing me on my religion that didn't understand my religion when it came to something like that? So instead, we're going to do something a little bit differently today. I usually ask a question at the end of the opening segment to get you to call me, and then we talk about it in the second segment or towards the end of the segment. We have a lot of Catholics in this audience. We have a lot of Christians in this audience. What do you think about the Pope passing away? And what do you want to see out of your next Pope? Give us a call or a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Whatever you say about the Pope, whether you disagreed with his politics, he was a man of God, served the Vatican, served God in his own way for decades and decades and decades, was a leader to millions. But I know people have some very, very strong feelings about this. So feel free to give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Let me know what you want to see out of the next Pope. Did you like the stuff from this Pope? They're calling him the People's Pope, but at the same time, there's a lot of political feelings regarding the man. So give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, President Trump has announced that he will be going to the Pope's funeral. One of the last images taken of the Pope was actually after he finally agreed to meet with J.D. Vance. Apparently he didn't want to because of their differences in immigration policy. And there's a little bit of a joke running around the internet that some people have been dying after meeting J.D. Vance. So it's just, he's meeting with a lot of old people. He's meeting with a lot of world leaders. So people are saying, oh, can we introduce him to Putin next? Can we introduce him to the Ayatollah next? And they keep doing the JD glance with the image of him next to whoever that person is every single time. It's kind of entertaining. So that second question, who do you want to see J.D. Vance meet with next? I mean, he keeps going at this rate. He's going to have a higher body count than Hillary Clinton. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have no evidence whatsoever to implicate Hillary Clinton on anything. I am very happy with my life. I am not suicidal. I am in reasonably good health. But you know what I really don't like about these religious situations, and I consider myself a man of faith. So here's something that really bothers me. All these people who have done everything in their career to attack religion, weighing in on religion. That really bothers me to my core. And something that bothers me more than that is people using religion for politics. That really bothers me. So, prime example of this is Jay Inslee. Can that dude find a job? It seems like nobody wants him or he's considering running for president. Yeah, by the way, I had this horrible revelation the other day, Mike. You notice that Jay Inslee, he's not a bright guy and nobody likes him very much. And everybody saw that he was a tool to be used while he was in office by the far left. So they got whatever they wanted out of Jay Inslee. But a lot of the other people who passed all this climate insanity in our area were at least smart enough to capitalize on it, like we spoke about Reuben Carlyle and other people like that. But it seems like Jay Inslee is just kind of sitting around tweeting about how much he hates Donald Trump. I have a new theory, by the way. I think that Jay Inslee is trying to get on the debate stage for president in 2028. And you all think I'm nuts about this. No. Look at the Democrat field for a minute. You're going to have, what, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, Then what? Bernie Sanders, AOC? I mean, who else are we going to haul into this mess? So it's up for grabs. And Jay Inslee probably thinks he'll come across as the voice of reason. He won't be the Bernie Sanders of the bunch, but he won't have all these other problems that he thinks Gavin Newsom has. Jay, 975 days of emergency powers. Do I need to remind you of that? Do I need to remind you of your body count? Because it dwarfs Hillary Clinton's. Talk about all the people that got killed in the nursing homes because you sent COVID-positive patients back into the nursing homes. But this is what Jay Inslee put out for Easter. Now, I want to take a step back for a second. We have a lot of Christians. We have a lot of Catholics in our audience. And I want to respect them on their holy day, which is Easter. I may not necessarily believe the same things you do. So every year without fail, Mike knows which post I put up. It's a various version of the same image, but it's always the Pillsbury Doughboy. It's the full Pillsbury Doughboy and the matzah version of the Pillsbury Doughboy. And it always says, he has risen with the full Pillsbury Doughboy. He has not. So for Passover, for Easter, take your choice buds away of recognizing everybody and saying happy Passover, happy Easter, have a good weekend, all this stuff. And you know what? Every politician does a thing where they're like, I want to wish everybody a happy this, happy that. Fine. I hate when they're the people who criticize religion, or they're the people who bash on religion, or they're the people like Jay Inslee who close synagogues and churches and mosques and shut down funerals and shut down weddings because, oh, I'm scared of the flu. I hate that. But what Jay Inslee wrote on Easter Sunday is nauseating. Not happy Easter, and then later I'll do a post like this. No. Here's what he wrote. Pretty sure that Jesus of Nazareth would never admit a soul was committed to hell by mistake, and then do nothing to fix the error. On this Easter, let us recognize one more difference between the Son of God and the son of Fred Trump. He really wrote this on Twitter. It's nauseating. And I'm not even Christian. I'm not even Catholic. This is nauseating. This is what you write on Easter? You know what? We kind of feel the same way about a lot of crimes for a minute here. So, if there was an MS-13 gang member in the days of the Second Temple who had done the things that this guy, Abreu Garcia, had done, I wonder what we would have done with him, because the good book is pretty specific about what you do in a lot of types of crimes. So, really, Jay? You're going to lecture anybody else on religion? Spare me your nonsense. You closed synagogues. You closed churches. You closed mosques. You kept kids out of religious school as long as you possibly could. You kept kids out of public school as long as you possibly could. You banned funerals. You banned weddings. You did whatever you could to stop religion in this state. You did whatever you could. Now you're going to lecture us on Easter. You're going to use a holy day in the Catholic community and the Christian community like Easter to push politics? What the hell is wrong with you? Well, I mean, we kind of know that already. However, there was some other stuff that happened this weekend, and there's a return to normal. It seems like the world is healing. Donald Trump has clearly not been the most religious guy most of his life, the most observant fellow most of his life. But clearly he had a religious experience during the assassination attempt, and he's always been religious friendly, but he's not necessarily been religious practicing. A reporter was asking him about how come he's mentioning Jesus now in his remarks regarding the holiday. Well, I'm sorry, it's not the Democrats who are afraid to ever talk about God or faith or anything like that. Here's what Donald Trump said.
You talked about Jesus in your opening statement.
Yeah.
How important is this country right now?
Very important. It brings the country together. I mean, it's so important if we can do that. Religion, I said, bring religion back. Religion keeps you together. It's such a great thing.
He's right. He's right. Why is it that religious organizations are more successful in combating the homeless problem than the secular ones? It's not just because they give people something to believe in, but it's because they live the life they preach, where a lot of people in Homeless Inc., for example, are doing it for a paycheck. Just doing it for a paycheck. When I worked with teenagers, believe me, I was not doing it for the paycheck. The paycheck was minuscule. We were doing it because we believed in the cause. And when you have people who believe in the cause, they're going to do a better job because they're more committed to the cause. President Trump owes his presidency to the faith-based community coming out and voting for him. And a lot of the way he was able to, I don't want to say weaponize, that's the wrong word, mobilize the faith-based community was because they saw how unfriendly Democrats in the Biden administration were to them and how friendly Republicans and Trump were to them. There is no comparison between the two of them, none at all. And meanwhile, you look at the Democrats. Are they supporting the victims of illegal immigrants? No, they're supporting the illegal immigrants. Without fail, they pick the wrong side every single time. So we're not going to pick faith. That gives people something to believe in, that brings community closer together, that builds sustainable communities, that go out in the world to do good, to carry out God's will. No, instead, we're going to support the MS-13 gang member. So, Senator Van Hollen, who's been doing the entire media circuit this weekend, had to keep doing circles, had to keep spinning and spinning and spinning, defending his trip because everybody said, yeah, but you went to hang out with a gang member. As we were saying last week, it's one thing to say, we believe everybody deserves due process. We think this guy's horrible. We think this guy's terrible. And you know what? Even if he's a gang member, he deserves due process. You can make that argument. But instead, the argument the Democrats are making about every single illegal immigrant is, oh, they're all somebody's father. He's just a Maryland man who got deported. Yeah, well, my taxpayer dollars should not be going so some senator can go have margaritas with a gang member down in El Salvador. And by the way, Senator Van Hollen, while he was on Fox News this weekend, confirmed that the trip was paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Okay, so it's like every other trip. Mike, have we done a lot of stories about people going to visit gang members? Is that something we do? I can't seem to recall ever doing that. No, not really. I mean, there's some pretty horrible heads of state out there, but I can't recall doing that. You know what? I think we should do this for every gang member. Yeah. There's like 4 or 5 Democrats down in El Salvador right now trying to get a meeting with this guy also, a whole bunch of the far left crazy Democrats because they're all saying, wait. Everybody knows who Van Hollen is now because of this little stunt. So you know what? I want to get my name in lights. I want to be famous too. I want to be on TV also. So I want to go do this. So let's just read some of the charges of the ones around here. Here we go. This one's from over the weekend. Mount Vernon, Washington. Child rapist and criminal alien Rafael Garcia Lopez is in our custody following his arrest. He has convictions for, wait for it, child sexual assault, sexually related assault. We previously removed him to his home country in Mexico. On June 9th, 2020, he re-entered illegally later that month near California. This case highlights exactly why we're ramping up criminal alien arrests and why Border Patrol is working around the clock preventing illegal entry. How many of these cases do we have on a regular basis? It's non-stop around here. Here's another one here. This one from ERO Seattle. That's ICE Seattle. Francisco Bautista Salmoran is a citizen of Mexico arrested by ERO Seattle in Kent, Washington. Bautista has previously been removed from the U.S., has a criminal history including trespassing, DUI, and driving without a license. Gee, why could any of that be a problem? Oh, you mean because the guy who allegedly killed a Washington State trooper up near Marysville last year had the exact same criminal record? Yeah, that could be a big issue. And yet we got a whole bunch of Democrats advocating for these illegal immigrants over the citizens that they harm, over the Washington State patrolmen that they harm, which is bonkers crazy. And speaking of bonkers crazy, the U.S. Supreme Court came out with a very odd ruling. They slapped an injunction on the Trump administration over the weekend. And this injunction says that the Trump administration can no longer use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport these illegal immigrants. So I went back and started looking some stuff up, by the way. Bill Clinton deported tons of illegal immigrants. Nobody tried to stop him. George Bush, both junior and senior, tried to deport a whole bunch of illegal immigrants. Nobody tried to stop them. Barack Obama deported a whole bunch of illegal immigrants. Nobody tried to stop them. Why are we doing this now? Because the Democrats finally figured out how they can get their voting base in here? Is that what it is? They prioritize the non-citizen gang members, human traffickers, drug dealers, murderers, criminals over you, over the citizens? It's crazy. It's bonkers crazy. But the Supreme Court, in a 7-2 decision, said they're slapping an injunction on this thing. Now, it's not done yet. This case has other steps to go through. The Supreme Court, it's an injunction. It's a, wait, we need to figure some of this stuff out. It's a little weird they did in the middle of the night. And actually, you had Justice Clarence Thomas call this out and say, what are you doing here? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And why are you doing it in the middle of the night? I have questions. I have many questions about why they have this ruling. I've read the injunction, and it doesn't give a lot there. It seems like they're just doing it because they don't like it. And you've got a lot of people who are the so-called conservative justices on the Supreme Court who back this decision. Now, this actually hurts Democrats' argument when they say it's Trump's Supreme Court. It's Trump's Supreme Court. A 7-2 decision against President Trump's signature policy of securing the border? That doesn't sound like it's a Trump-supporting court. But anytime they claim that in the future, you get to throw this back at them and say, what are you talking about? You literally have Roberts and Comey Barrett and all this other stuff who are siding with the liberal justices in this case. Now, I look forward to the rest of the adjudication of this case because I want to see how they finally land. I want to see where this finally ends up. But it seems to me more and more we're looking at the Democrats being on the side of people who hate religion, being on the side of people who hate law and order, being on the side of people who hate America, being on the side of people who hate our way of life. And then they're going to lecture us on religion just because it's Easter Sunday, just because it's Passover, just because it's whatever other holiday crops up. They're going to use religion for their own purposes like Jay Inslee did. It's disgusting to me. And it's not even my religion that was this weekend. Yes, we had the last days of Passover, but most people didn't know that. Most people know it as Easter Sunday. The 10 Commandments were on. We all know that, right, on ABC. So I'm upset about this because the very people who shut down synagogues, who shut down churches, who shut down mosques, they're the ones who are going to lecture us on religion. They're the ones who are going to say they are the ones who care about religion all of a sudden. Spare me. Spare me. Jay Inslee had 975 days of emergency powers. He did everything he possibly could to stop religion. He did everything he possibly could to prevent religion from happening. Shut down religious schools, shut down mosques, shut down synagogues, shut down churches, shut down funerals, shut down weddings. That's what they stand for. They use religion when it's convenient. And it truly makes me sick. Truly makes me sick. You guys want to weigh in on this, you give me a call or a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, what is a food apartheid? No, we're not talking about the Middle East. Apparently there's one happening right here in Seattle at your local grocery store. We'll tell you, or try to tell you, what the Seattle Times is talking about when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Naomi Ishisaka, we have talked about on the show a few times before, is probably the worst journalist, columnist, whatever you want to call her, over at the Seattle Times. She is so far left. She is so open-minded. Her brains have fallen out. Every take she has, without fail, without exception, is not just a bad one because I disagree with her. They're bad because of how ignorant and dumb she is. I'm sorry to say that. That's actually the truth. So, Seattle Times lured me in one of the emails. I still get their emails. No matter what I do, I still get their emails. With a clickbait headline about food apartheid. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be something about what's going on in the Middle East or Israeli products at Safeway or PCC. Nope. That's not what it's about at all. Okay. So apparently she writes this article, this column for the Seattle Times, that she's mad that a new Trader Joe's has opened in North Seattle. And she's mad. Sorry, I'm just laughing at the ridiculousness of this. She's mad that one of her colleagues at the Seattle Times is talking about the veritable cornucopia of grocery stores in the neighborhood, quote, all within a few miles of each other are Ken's Market, Fred Meyer, PCC, Lenny's Produce, SARS Super Saver, QFC, Sprouts Farmers Market, Asian Family Market, and now Trader Joe's, her colleague wrote. So she's mad that other parts of Seattle don't have as many grocery stores. She writes, yet areas including South Seattle and other economically disadvantaged parts of the city often have nothing close to a cornucopia of grocery options. Now, this is funny because she lives near me, and I have watched over the last 20 years as these stores have closed one by one and gotten more and more dangerous. We used to have a QFC in South Seattle. It got turned into a SARS, and then it closed and became a Planet Fitness. We used to have Rite Aids and Walgreens and all this other stuff all over the place. They all closed. We had so much crime in South Seattle that a lot of these stores, like Safeways, have now closed multiple entrances, have these electronic gates that you have to go through, have special sections which you have to check out of, and many things are all behind plexiglass. Why is that, Naomi Ishisaka? Do you think that's because of the dumb policies you and your friends at the Seattle Times have supported that led to, defunding the police, increases in the minimum wage, which led a lot of places to leave the area? So, she writes about farther north on Beacon Hill, there have been some area treasures, including McPherson's Fruit and Produce, a beloved produce stand that was shuttered in 2023, but reopened in 2024. So, it reopened. What are you upset about? I love McPherson's, by the way. Great place. But then she writes this, and this is the part that I really thought was ridiculous. Studies have found that food access is associated with racial composition of a neighborhood, with more supermarkets and grocery stores in predominantly white areas and fewer in mostly black areas. No, not entirely true. Do you know what it is? In certain areas, you have less crime. And because you have less crime, more stores are going to want to be open. In other areas, you have more crime, and that means less places will want to be open. But in addition to that, near the Jewish neighborhood, guess what? There's kosher grocery stores. And near Hispanic neighborhoods, there are grocery stores that serve the Hispanic community. And near the Indian communities are grocery stores that serve the Indian community. These things happen. So sometimes they can't shop at these other places. Look, I can go to Safeway and look for kosher symbols, right? I can't get kosher meat everywhere. I can't get kosher chicken everywhere. And other people have other things they want for their culture, their religion, whatever. Now, then she writes this, and this cracks me up. Well, there have been lots of focus on what have been dubbed food deserts in the past decades. There are some challenging the food desert framing as oversimplified and instead calling it food apartheid. All right, we need to march so that the food has rights. What are we talking about? Sausage Party here? All the little food have. I know. No. The movie. Yes, disgusting movie. Disgusting cartoon. But the concept of food apartheid, a term coined by food justice advocate, wait for it, Karen Washington, yep, there you go, is an effort to more closely examine the systemic causes of food inequity, including racism, economic inequality, and discrimination. Or perhaps it's because in lower income areas where you guys got rid of the police, there's more crime. Because you guys forced the minimum wage on Seattle, a lot of these stores had to close and specifically cited your insane minimum wage and hazard pay requirements as the reason they had to leave Seattle. Food apartheid. I was expecting Middle East fun. I was expecting Israel. I was expecting anti-Israel. I was expecting Hamasniks. A food apartheid. This is the lunacy we're reading about in the Seattle Times. Cancel your subscriptions. Well, it's not like there's nothing else going on in the world today, right? Instead, they're writing about food apartheid. Yeah, where's Nelson Mandela to solve that food apartheid, right? We'll get him in there. Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy. You give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Going to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, referencing our previous segment where we were talking about the Pope and how J.D. Vance has been taking out people one at a time by sheer luck that some people are dying after meeting J.D. Vance just by coincidence. Art writes, J.D. Vance needs to meet with Jay Inslee. That's not nice, Art. Funny, but not nice. No, that's not nice at all. Don't say that. Anyway, seems like a lot of people on the text line were not so happy with the previous Pope Francis. It seems like a lot of people had high hopes for the previous Pope, especially as the first Jesuit, et cetera, et cetera. But they feel like it went a little off the rails, especially when he started mixing in so much politics. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up, man, is I somehow didn't buy a Sound Transit hat, and then I heard last Friday that your guest called it a MAGA hat for liberals. I wonder what you meant by that.
I didn't say that. I think young Zach called it that or something. But yeah, you mean the Sound Transit hat? Joe, how can you be Transit Joe if you don't own the terrible Sound Transit gear they're selling?
Some of it is so bad that I wish I could have designed it for them. But I did buy. I did. Hang on. I did buy some stickers for the and a new T-shirt to honor the upcoming Golden Age brought by a Super Jew and Vanessa Kritzer that will open Redmond Link on May 10th, which will be the Day of Angels when all anti-Semites will fall to the ground and all true good humans will smile.
Is there a book of Sound Transit you are quoting from here, Joe? I'm unfamiliar with this religion. Joe, tell me how you like these other T-shirt ideas. These are ones I didn't get to on Friday, okay? Here's the T-shirt for Sound Transit. If it's on time and on budget, it ain't Sound Transit. How's that? Do you like that one? Or how about this? Dow Constantine's dream.
No.
Broken escalators, homeless scenes, and drugs reign supreme. Sound Transit. How's that?
That's completely wrong. And Dad's not Dow Constantine's dream. He's working to improve transit despite all the damn Fetty brought in here. And,
how about this one? How about this one, Joe? Sound Transit, ride the chaos. How's that?
I might actually like it because I don't mind a little chaos to actually get golden age. And this golden age of President Vanessa Kritzer in Redmond, her great leadership has finally brought to Redmond its rightful share of sexy light rail that will make you lose weight, smile, be happier, and reduce the pollution.
And get a contact high with every ride.
Well,
Joe, I appreciate. Hang on a second, Joe. I appreciate that you and I can joke back and forth like this and have these fun segments. I really do, buddy. Call anytime. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, NPR is busted doing fake news yet again. This time being called out by the White House specifically. We'll give you the details on what happened. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Okay, you guys are mean. I'm here for it. It's funny, but you guys are mean over on the text line today. You're giving me like a hit list for J.D. Vance of who you want him to meet with, thinking they're going to die like the Pope. That's not nice. Funny, but not nice. Dan says over on the text line, J.D. Vance needs to meet with Senator Jamie Peterson from Washington. Wow, guys. So that's Jay Inslee, Jamie Peterson. You're coming up with all the locals. Next year, I don't even want to know where. I'm not giving suggestions, guys. That's funny. Funny, though. Matt, though, our friend Matt Gilbert, of course, he has a good one when we were just talking about food apartheid, Mike. He says this, food apartheid, free Nelson Marsala. That is excellent. Oh, Matt G for the win, as always. That one's just fantastic.
That's going to be tough to beat. That is like the text of the day. My goodness. Also, with back to the J.D. Vance thing for a sec, I've been seeing the same meme on Twitter a couple times. It's a two-shot. You got a Kristi Noem and you got a J.D. Vance. It's like, I kill dogs. Hold my beer.
Sorry. I was about to drink water. I'm real glad I didn't. I would have spat it all over my console stuff here. It would have been really, really bad. Oh, by the way, I was also laughing out loud, not LOL, actually laughing out loud when I came back after 48 hours off the grid, so I missed all the Easter stuff and everything else because it was Passover. So Sunday night, I logged back on it, and all the jokes about Joe Biden and the Easter Bunny were great. And then when Trump makes them, they're even better. So first, you got Donald Trump, President Trump, and the First Lady appear on the balcony to wave to the crowd today, right? They're waving to the crowd today. All the kiddies are out for the Easter egg roll. They're all waving to them. And the Easter Bunny is standing next to them. I thought it was photoshopped. I really did. I noticed it's a different mascot costume than with Joe Biden. And I think that was done intentionally. Like, I assume the White House has a mascot costume. But it wasn't the big white bunny. This one looks more Peter Rabbit kind of bunny. But it's just standing there. The bunny's standing with Trump. It's great. It's hysterical. It's funny. But then when they come down and talk about the crowd, Donald Trump says this.
Do you remember the bunny with Joe Biden? Remember? Do you remember when the bunny took Joe Biden out? He's not taking Trump out. Anyway, that was a beautiful moment when the bunny saved Joe Biden.
Isn't it nice not to have a president who's led around by the Easter Bunny? Let's just put that all out there. By the way, who is in that Easter Bunny costume? I have no idea. But the Easter Bunny saying, no, we got to go this way. We got to go this way. I just like that President Trump, like him or hate him, I like that he's in charge, not the Easter Bunny or whoever's in the earpiece of the Easter Bunny, right? Did somebody whisper in the Easter Bunny's ears, quick, go get Biden. He's lost it again. Now, here's something fun that's going on. NPR published a report. And what it's based on is apparently there is allegedly another Signal chat involving Pete Hegseth with the attacks on the Houthis, where he said in a Signal chat classified data. Now, he completely denies this. The White House completely has his back. But then NPR writes this, exclusive. The White House is looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. It is amazing the ton of bricks that has come down on NPR for everybody saying there is no truth to this whatsoever, and they just fired a whole bunch of people from the Pentagon. So maybe one of them is disgruntled. Maybe one of them is looking to get revenge. But you guys bought into a fake news story. So first you have the press secretary on Fox News saying this.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring, so they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job, and the president stands strongly behind him.
Exactly. Now, what's even funnier is they asked Trump this while he's standing next to the Easter Bunny today, and here's what he said.
I mean, I hear they're doing that whole thing again. Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thank you. Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Ask the Houthis how much dysfunction they have. There's none. Pete's doing a great job. Everybody's happy with him. We have the highest recruitment numbers I think they've had in 28 years. No, he's doing a great job. It's just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees. You know, he was put there to get rid of a lot of bad people, and that's what he's doing. So you don't always have friends when you do that.
Do you understand that the left controlled the military? They completely controlled the military when they were putting out pictures of them wearing those dog masks, which, for the kiddies in your car, we're not going to expand on what those things were for, but the complete failure of General Mark Milley in Afghanistan and their woke recruiting tools and how their recruiting numbers went through the floor, and now their recruiting numbers are way, way up. America is respected and feared on the international stage again. That's Pete Hegseth. You know what else they don't like? Pete Hegseth was a lower-level guy. It's a grunt telling the brass what to do, and now he outranks all of them. And they really don't like it, and they don't like that he's being successful. They are going to keep trying to take him down. And they tried doing it with the personal stuff. That didn't work. So now what they're trying to do is his job performance every single time. And once again, with the Signal chat, stop trying to make Signal happen. Stop trying to make Signalgate happen. It didn't work last time. This administration is moving too quickly. There's always another news story. And where's the victim in this one? So we don't even know if classified information was actually shared. But at the same time, the military operations were all successful. Military options are devastating. The Houthi rebels, or the Houthis, as Donald Trump calls them, the Houthis and the blowfishes, are getting blown out of the water in the Middle East. It's amazing. And we're protecting American shipping. What is the left really mad about? That America is strong again, that our military is being restored again, because don't forget what Hillary Clinton said years ago when she was coming off of Air Force One with Bill Clinton. She said, we really need to get rid of all these uniforms. That's what the left wants. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Bad news for women's sports here in Washington following legal threats from the Attorney General and creepy Chris Rakedahl. Looks like women's sports are going to be wide open to men. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I know the segment is usually funny and more upbeat, and the music sounds upbeat, but today is a really, really sad day in Washington because the left has completely opened the door to destroying what's left of women's sports here in Washington and letting men compete at every level here in Washington. So I'll say, who's joining the WNBA? Which men are joining the Storm this year? Because if you want to fix this problem, it's going to take somebody like LeBron James saying, I want to be on the Storm. I want to be on the Mystic. I want to be on one of these teams, and then maybe things might change. So today, I saw an announcement that the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association has declared a new sport in our state, girls flag football. And a whole bunch of outlets were all excited about this. Woo! New girls sport. No, it's not. Because at the exact same time they were reporting this, here's what else they were reporting, and this is from King 5. The state's youth sports governing body did not pass a proposed amendment that would have restricted girls' sports to biological females. The Washington Interscholastic Activities Association announced that Amendment Number 7 failed to reach the 60% threshold needed to pass by its representative assembly of 53 school administrators. The vote would have been an advisory one only, as the amendment would be in violation of current Washington state law. Now, do you know why they added that last part right there? It's not in violation of federal law. You could make the argument that Washington state law that allows boys and girls sports is in violation of federal law, especially given the executive order that President Trump signed. But here's something interesting. Do you remember that Chris Rakedal, creepy Chris Rakedal, the superintendent of public instruction of Washington, was going around threatening all those school districts that were saying we want to get rid of men in women's sports? He was threatening them with their funding if they went forward with actually doing that. He did the same thing to the WIAA, did the exact same thing to them, and then comes along Nick Brown going, yeah, don't even think about doing it, because if you do, we are going to come after you. So basically, they were threatened into submission, and nobody even wanted to take the chance. So the end result was 40-13. 40-13. One of the other amendments was 31-22. So you've got some brave people left in the state, but overwhelming majority are either woke or afraid of prosecution or afraid of losing their funding. And they caved to the woke mob. Let's not forget what these things were going to do, what these amendments were going to do. The first one was going to give an option of there's going to be girls' sports, and then there's going to be everybody else sports, which is basically saying boys play with boys, even if you identify as transgender. The second option was girls' sports, boys' sports, transgender sports, which I actually think makes the most amount of sense. I think you should have boys' sports. If you really want to do this, you should have boys' sports, girls' sports, boys who identify as girls, girls who identify as boys. If you really want to go down this road, that's what you want to do. And those of you who say, well, there's not enough in the state. Yeah, guess what? There weren't enough Jews in Seattle for a Jewish baseball league, so I had to put together a team of Jews and Seventh-day Adventists, and I made it work. And I made it work for years when I coached those teams for my boys. If you're really committed to something, you figure out a way to do it. But here you're upending the entire system. So you guys can brag about girls flag football. It's not going to be a girls' sport. Any boy that wants to run faster, jump higher, have more stamina, whatever the case may be, who can't hack it in the boys' league is going to head on over to the girls' league. And this is how girls' sports die. Because so many parents will say, I don't want my daughter getting hurt. I don't want my daughter losing out on scholarships. We're not even going to try. My daughter has experimented with sports the past couple of years. She tried cross country. She tried women's golf. And my biggest fear is that she's going to end up in one of these situations and she's in a private school, because you're playing other private schools. And some of them go along with this nonsense because they're all still regulated by the same agency. Is that fair? Of course it's not. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up, man?
Ari, I totally concur. I played high school football, tackle football, and I also played flag football in college. The only difference, other than, you're not wearing pads when you play flag football, you tackle the ball carrier, and then you pull his flag off, right?
No, and this one, they play a little differently now because my son actually played flag football. So they wear these things around them. You don't tackle anybody. You just pull them. But at the same time, people get bumped into. There is physical contact.
What you're giving me is the theory, and what I'm giving you is the practice.
Okay, fair. I've helped volunteer coach a tiny smidgen for them, so I saw how they did it. But okay, I'm with you.
Anyway, yes, boys will tackle and injure girl players. It will happen.
Yes.
Okay. I checked. This is so ludicrous. My favorite example is Olympic weightlifting. The 10th place finisher in the 2024 Olympics in the 160-pound weight class outlifted all women, regardless of weight class, and that includes the super heavyweight.
Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Ted, I wish we had more time to discuss this, but we're coming up on a hard break.
Okay,
I completely hear where you're coming from. Thank you for the perspective. Thank you for being part of the show. When we come back, my friends, your chance to be part of the golden age of America and win over $2,000 cash and a Daniel's Broiler gift card. Plus, are the Democrats retreating on their tax proposals or not? We'll give you the details. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 4:45, your chance to win two tickets to an advanced screening of The Accountant 2. But before we get to any of that, my friends, now is your chance to be part of the golden age of America.
You to dream big again, and this will be America's new golden age. We're going to have a golden age.
Yes, we are. A golden age of America, my friends.
The golden age of America begins right now.
Look how excited KVI Nation is to hear about that. So, this is your chance to win $2,025 and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. All you have to do is text the keyword I give you to the number I give you. And when you do that, do not give me your phone number, do not give me your address, do not give me any personal information, do not give me your name. If you win, we will find you. You can only enter once. If you do it more than once, your entry will be disqualified. So just the word. Today's word is oval, as in Donald Trump runs the golden age of America from the Oval Office.
I can proudly proclaim that the golden age of America is upon us.
Exactly right. So the keyword is oval, O-V-A-L. Text it to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You have until 5 o'clock to enter the keyword oval, O-V-A-L. Your next chance to win is coming up tomorrow at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil Vandervoort. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and so much more. Also, I want to thank President Trump for taking the time out from the Easter egg hunt on the White House lawn today to be joining us for the Golden Age of America competition.
Well, and thank you, Ari. You do an incredible job and such an important voice. Thank you very much, Ari.
I know we play that every single time, Mike, but it is so affirming to hear that every single day. It just makes me feel good inside every single time when we play that. You know what doesn't make me feel good? Democrats games. I don't like the Democrats games here in Washington. And there was an article that came out earlier today from the Washington State Standard. I'm going to read it to you. This is by Jerry Cornfield. And we have our issues with Jerry, especially recently. He's the one who was denying press credentials to people, or rather passed that duty off to the Democrats in the Washington legislature so they could deny people press credentials. But he says the property tax battle of 2025 is over in the Washington state legislature. Democrats are ending their bid to repeal a voter-approved limit on property tax growth, excising one of the most controversial revenue-raising ideas they've pursued this session. The proposal, embedded in House Bill 2049, seeks to allow an increase in the growth factor from the current 1% cap to the combined rate of population growth plus inflation within a taxing district not to exceed 3%. This would apply to the state's common schools levies for cities and counties, as well as special purpose districts. The financial analysis projected that uncapping the state property taxes would net an additional $200 million for public schools and potentially $236 million for local governments in the next budget. Now, the bill passed the House Finance Committee on Saturday and was expected to be voted on in the House by today. So we all get really excited when we hear this news, right? Because they were talking about tripling, quadrupling, however much they wanted our property taxes. And I originally thought this was accurate. I thought this is what's going to happen because this would have been a huge win. Because what did all of you do? You guys spammed the Washington legislature. Tens of thousands of testimonies against this nonsense because it's going to price people out of their homes. We played some of the actual sob stories of people. I was worried about my house. I was worried. You know what? I got my kids out of the house now. Am I going to have to downsize because of how much they're going to charge me? Look, I know what my taxes are that I'm paying this month. I'm waiting until the last day of this month to pay those property taxes. They've gotten so exponentially higher than when I moved in. So I said when I first heard this, I posted on social media, this is a huge win, but they will try again and find other ways to tax you. Get ready for a flood of stories about counties cutting services rather than wasteful spending. What do we see every single day, Mike? Police funding might be in jeopardy. Schools might have to close. Hospitals may have to close. They're all going to lose the funding. Trying to make you feel bad about the fact that the Democrats can't tax you to death. Well, there's one teensy tiny little problem. So, as opposed to ending their attempt to spike property taxes, the latest news, and things are constantly changing in the Washington legislature, because what do we have, 7 days left to this session? At most, I think that's where we're at. So they're going to try and cram in as much garbage as they possibly can this week. And it's going to be back and forth and back and forth and back and forth because nobody wants to come back for a special session. Washington Democrats may now amend House Bill 2049 to significantly increase the cap on local levies. So they're not going to say unlimited. They're going to say, well, instead of 3%, it'll be 5%, 6%, 10%, 20%. So that local governments can still jack up your property taxes without voter approval. So, my friends, we haven't had to do this in a while. I'm going to ask you to do it again. And if you haven't called the number yet, I'm going to ask you to do it this one time. Because this affects every single one of us. And if you're listening to the show and you say, I'm a renter, it's no problem. My friends, you know what this is going to do? Jack up your landlord's property taxes, and who's going to have to pay them? That's you. That's economics. So kids who don't have financial literacy, trust me when I say this is going to hurt renters, and this is going to hurt anybody who owns their own house. So what I want you to do is I want you to call the legislative hotline, 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000, and say no to House Bill 2049, or if you can't remember the bill number, you say no to spiking my property taxes and the bills associated with spiking my property taxes. That's 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. And remember to be polite to the person on the phone. They are not the ones doing this stupidity. They just work with them. They just work for them. So they are not responsible for this mess. They are your friends. They are there to take your phone calls. Be nice to them. Be polite to them. Can we do that? Can we all agree on this? Yes, please? Fantastic. Excellent. Now, speaking of what's going on in the Washington State Legislature, Governor Bob Ferguson, my God, has signed a new law that restricts out-of-state military forces from entering the state without explicit permission. This is a publicity stunt. What he's basically saying is, I don't want any Proud Boys or anything else coming into the state. I don't want them here. We don't want them here in this state. And he's also saying, I don't want National Guards in the state sent by other states like those evil people in Texas or Florida to patrol the northern border. Do you know why this is pure virtue signaling? We literally had on the Assistant Secretary of DHS last week. And what did she tell us, Mike, our new friend of the show? She said to us, Tricia McLaughlin, she told us that the northern border is more secure than it's ever been. And in fact, today there was a report I saw out of the New York Post. We scooped the New York Post, Mike, where the New York Post was talking about the sector that was wide open in New Hampshire and New York and Vermont and those states over there where they were seeing tons of border crossings. That one also is very, very secure now, and they did all that without sending the National Guard to the border. Turns out you didn't need more spending. You just needed a new president. So House Bill 1321, which Bob Ferguson signed today, is pure virtue signaling. That's what this is about. Oh, we're not going to allow a deadly insurrection. No. Bob Ferguson will just allow people to take over 6 blocks of Seattle. Got no problem with the John Brown Gun Club. Got no problem with Antifa. Got no problem with BLM taking over 6 blocks of Seattle because he was the AG at the time and did absolutely nothing about it. But if you're going to come secure the border, I'm going to stop you. If you want to be a militia for any kind, even though, Mike, what is that amendment? There's a bunch of amendments in this document, and it talks about a well-regulated militia. Oh, the Big Mike militia.
Yeah,
he's trying to ban the Big Mike militia. No, Mike, I'm sorry. The Big Mike militia has been officially banned by Governor Bob Ferguson. I am very upset. Yes, he did it.
What do you mean, no?
Yeah, exactly. No more Big Mike militia. You know what? We're going to fight the power. That's what we're going to do to make sure the big, you know what, Mike, this is okay, we're going to workshop something on the air.
You want to talk about an 80-20 issue here. Now
Okay.
I'm involved, so
We're
you have
about
to get mobilized.
We should mobilize the Big Mike militia for this one. We should make some graphics tomorrow with Zach. What do you mean? Well, like I could just imagine it now. You have like a picture of Turd Ferguson right there, and he goes, "No more militias," and then you got a picture of Big Mike right there, and you go, "Whoa, wait a minute. Are you banning the Big Mike militia? This is our call to arms, Big Mike militia." This is funny. I'll tell you what. How should the Big Mike militia resist, put the fist up in the air? How are we going to resist Turd Ferguson's reign of terror? Here's how you do it. You text us or call us at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Exactly, because the Big Mike militia is a well-regulated militia, as mandated by the Constitution itself. And it seems like Turd Ferguson wants to shut down the Constitution, the Second Amendment, and therefore de facto by nature of it, the Big Mike militia. And this is unacceptable. I will not stand for this. In fact, I think this is one of the times where Ari's army will come and support the Big Mike militia and say, we will have your back. We will take up arms together against this tyrant.
Yes.
Exactly. Unite the
United as one.
As one.
The legend begins right here.
Oh, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. We could have so much fun with this on social media, by the way. Well, I think we should really do that starting today. It'll be a lot of fun. The other thing that Turd Ferguson signed into law was this bill, which is basically allowing them to do whatever they want in case there's ever another faux-demic again, right? A plandemic again. That's what they want. Oh, we can insist on this. We can insist on that. That's another thing he signed. They put out a list of all the stuff he signed. It's mostly procedural garbage. But these are the two things that really stood out to me of the stuff they signed today, and it's going to get a whole lot worse. Now, meanwhile, the trade wars are affecting Washington. Now, there was a Boeing 737 MAX that was reportedly returned to King County International Airport instead of going to one of China's airlines. Now, this is being reported as a stunt by China to say, if you keep up these tariffs on us, we're not going to buy your airplanes. I notice it's an airplane. It's not a fleet of airplanes. It's not a whole bunch of airplanes. It's an airplane. Now, Boeing's had plenty of problems, but this is a very clear signal to Donald Trump, to the Trump administration, hey, stop messing with us on these tariffs or we're going to stop spending the hundreds of millions of dollars, the billions of dollars on your airplanes, and we will go to Airbus. However, there was something, I don't want to say entertaining. It was scary today that happened. An Airbus caught fire in Orlando Airport on the tarmac today, and they had to evacuate a whole bunch of people off the plane. So the symbolism was kind of lost. If we're going to be talking about airplanes today, an Airbus spontaneously combusted. We don't know why. Clearly it didn't spontaneously combust, but the symbolism was kind of lost there. We have a lot of Boeing people that listen to the show. There's been a lot of Boeing layoffs this year. I have friends who are affected by the Boeing layoffs. Does this concern you? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And let us know if this mess with Boeing is concerning to you. It's a little concerning to me. You know what I think the Trump administration needs to start doing? They need to start saying, okay, here's the trade deals we have done, and roll them out and make big announcements. We got to do them right away. The stock market is all over the place right now. In fact, Senator John Kennedy had some interesting things to say because Donald Trump has been going after the head of the Fed. And you know what? Jerome Powell, I got issues with him. He should have dropped the interest rates by now. But I don't think that by attacking the guy is going to get you anywhere. In fact, Donald Trump knows this. He doesn't criticize Putin. He doesn't criticize Rocket Man in North Korea. What does he do? He gives them compliments, and then he makes deals with them. Look at all the hostages we've been able to get back so far. So I think Senator John Kennedy actually makes a good point in this interview with Fox News.
Senator, we are almost out of time, but as you know, tensions have been mounting between the president and the Fed chair. Would you support President Trump removing Jerome Powell as Fed chair?
I don't think the president, any president, has the right to remove the Federal Reserve chairman. I think the Federal Reserve ought to be independent. I think that Jay Powell and President Trump need to sit down and once again have a hug and a cup of hot cocoa and work it out. My experience with Jay Powell is that he's got tiger blood. He's going to do what he thinks is right. And he's not going to go down in history as the Federal Reserve chairman that allowed inflation to become wild as a March hare. And he's going to do what he thinks he's got to do.
All right.
So that's actually a good point. You go, what happens when an immovable force collides with an unstoppable object? We're about to find out. And the problem is it affects all of our finances. Now, a lot of people don't even understand what's going on. They throw out the word tariff. They hear them in commercials. And actually, Secretary Bessent, Treasury Secretary, had an interesting point today of things that kids aren't learning in school.
America has been very good to me and my family, and I want to spread the word that through financial literacy, you can accumulate both financial security, peace of mind, and move toward your financial goals.
Exactly right. What schools teach financial literacy anymore? Do any of them? We haven't even got caught up on the learning loss of COVID. If they can't do math, as we've been seeing from these abysmal scores, and they can't do reading, writing, and arithmetic, then how are they ever going to understand financial literacy? Oh, Mike, you're going to like this text over here on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. You've been looking at these, Mike. So one of them says we should coordinate a gun training event. We should go to the range together with the Big Mike militia, take up arms, the well-regulated militia. That sounds like it. That was like my idea to deck the halls with guns and ammo for Christmas. This is really great. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Speaking of miseducation, my friends, when we come back, Joe Biden lied to everybody with a student loan. And if you listen to him, you're going to be paying financially for it. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. A lot of people who are in a lot of debt believed a lot of Joe Biden's empty promises about student loan forgiveness. He didn't have the power to do it. The Supreme Court said so. And when they shut him down, he continued to promise he was going to do it anyway. Why? To win an election. Now, if you have control of Congress, then you know what? You can change certain laws. And in fact, if there's certain things the Trump administration does not like, it can change certain laws while it has control of Congress. Is it going to be harder because of the slim majorities? 1,000%. But you can start making laws. That's what Congress does. And then once it's law, unless it violates the Constitution. That's a whole nother conversation we could have with the Supreme Court. So, Education Secretary Linda McMahon wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today. She said President Biden never had the authority to forgive student loans across the board, as the Supreme Court upheld in 2023. But for political gain, he dangled the carrot of loan forgiveness in front of young voters, among other things, by keeping in place temporary COVID-era deferment program. Thus, the Education Department allowed students to rack up a massive debt that is now long past due. Imagine not paying a loan and interest accumulates and accumulates and accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. That's the trouble these people are going to be in. Now, if Bernie Sanders and AOC run on a ticket together for president, aside from the fact that that's absolutely horrifying, they are going to promise this. They're going to promise that your mortgage will be paid for and rent control and free things for everybody. Nothing's free in life. Nothing's free in life. Somebody's getting taxed for it. And when they tax all the millionaires and billionaires, will they be taxing themselves or find carve-outs for themselves? Or when they do that, are the millionaires and billionaires just going to move their money to the Cayman Islands, sticking you with the bill, so you're still paying for it? Between 2021 and 2024, federal student loan debt increased by more than $60 billion a year, while the department manipulated repayment plans and forgiveness policies until only 38% of the student loan portfolio was in repayment. This is unsustainable for both students and taxpayers. So the secretary said she is announcing the end of this dishonest and irresponsible policy. We will conform the department's repayment options to federal court decisions and end the Biden-era practice of zero interest, zero accountability forbearances that are pushing borrowers into loan delinquency and default. On May 5th, we will begin the process of moving roughly 1.8 million borrowers into repayment plans and restart collections of loans in default. Borrowers who don't make payments on time will see their credit scores go down and in some cases their wages automatically garnished. Why? Not because we want to be unkind to student borrowers. Borrowing money and failing to pay it back isn't a victimless offense. Debt doesn't go away. It gets transferred to others. If borrowers don't pay their debts to the government, taxpayers do. Student loans must always be paid back because they are unlike other types of consumer loans. If a borrower stops paying a mortgage or a car payment, he will go into foreclosure or find his car repossessed. Student loans have no collateral. It is impossible to repossess a college degree. That's why they are very rarely discharged even in bankruptcy. That's the hard truth for borrowers. But I have another hard truth for institutions that made empty promises to students while pocketing their loan dollars. Colleges and universities call themselves nonprofits, but for years, they have profited massively off the federal subsidy of loans, hiking tuition, piling up multi-billion-dollar endowments while students graduate six figures in the red. A widely cited 2015 study found that for every dollar of increased federal caps on subsidized loans, colleges raised tuition by 60 cents. Many of the degree-generating programs that qualify for student loans are worthless on the job market, but colleges continue to accept students to these programs and encourage them to borrow to pay for them. Accountability is a two-way street. As we push to hold student borrowers to account, we will also push colleges to be responsible and transparent. If you are a student borrower with a federal loan balance and have been making payments, you must restart payments now. Our Federal Student Aid Office is providing every form of assistance we legally can to ensure a monthly payment can fit your budget. We recently extended the FSA call center operations with weekend hours to ensure your individual questions can be answered. We are updating the loan simulator to help calculate your easiest repayment plan. We also provided advanced AI assistant Aiden to help pinpoint your best financial strategy. As we plan for the department's future, we won't leave the loan portfolio in disarray. We are committed to ensuring that borrowers are paying back their loans, that they are fully supported in doing so, and that colleges can't create such a massive liability for students and their families, jeopardizing their ability to achieve the American dream. Now, think about this for a second. A lot of students were sold a bill of goods. If you graduate college, you will get a higher, better paying job. That's what they were told for years. Because what did the studies say years ago when most people didn't go to college? Well, these people who go to college make more money. What they failed to mention was they go to college so they can become lawyers. They go to college so they can become doctors. They go to college so they can become accountants. But the problem was a lot of people didn't do this. And people who should have been mechanics, and that's not a judgment on their intellect. That's what they're good at. So, for example, there are plenty of people out there who are better at working with their hands. Let's take me for a minute. I am not a good student. I never was a good student. I had to work exceptionally hard to do well in school. And you can tell by my transcripts when I discovered women and I stopped doing well in school. You can discover when I got a social life and I stopped being a nerd with no friends. That is very clear in my transcript. I was not a great student. But you know what? I have something going for me. I was always a good public speaker. And I was able to build on that and build on that and build on that. Is that a marketable skill? Sometimes, I'll say. Sometimes. But you know what? The communications majors weren't in my school what they are now, where they say, okay, we're going to get you to be a spokesperson. We're going to get you to be a salesman. We're going to get you to be any of these kind of things. And by the way, to be a salesman, you know the two best schools I ever went to for all my sales experience I had and for all my public speaking? Yeah, and I was a theater kid. Bartending school and real estate school. Those were the two, and each of them were a 2-week class. Did I need to go to 3 years of college? No, absolutely not. And by telling all these kids who would have been better off being plumbers, electricians, carpenters, mechanics, radio guys, whatever the case may be, by telling them that they were better off going to college, we crippled them with mounting debt, and then they graduate and go, where's my job? Where's my corner office I was promised? This is what you told me I was going to get. Well, some people are going to say what the Trump administration is doing cold-hearted. No, you still made the commitment. You may not have understood it at the time because you have no financial literacy, but you still made the commitment. How many people signed loans for things they didn't understand? You know the story of my first credit card? This is embarrassing. I was a kid, and I walked into a retail store to buy something. And they said, if you sign up for our credit card, you get this for free. I get this for free? I didn't realize what I was doing because I was a dum-dum. Because I was 18 years old, didn't have real financial literacy. Sure, I had a checking account that my parents opened for me when I started babysitting and all that. So I had a few bucks to my name, but I didn't really understand what was going on. Before you know it, my father had to call the credit card company and be like, he's a stupid teenager. How do we fix this? Yeah, because how many people make the same stupid mistakes when they give you these incentives to get this credit card and they have no idea what they are doing? No clue whatsoever. We're not teaching financial literacy anymore. So a lot of people are going to say, oh, my God, Trump administration, they're taking away my money. No, they're making you pay back your loan, which, by the way, if you don't make on your car and you don't make on your house, those things get taken away too. But they're giving you every opportunity to pay it back. And I'll say to people, there are jobs you may not want, but they are jobs that pay the bills. My son, Jonah the intern. Jonah the intern right now is washing dishes while he is in college at a Chinese restaurant to help pay his expenses. Because he's a responsible kid like that. He's also doing some social media stuff. He does a lot of things because he says, Mom and Dad are paying all these bills in tuition, but I haven't graduated yet. So because I can't get the full-time job yet, I got to do these things in the meantime. Good kid. My other son, he works for a local caterer. He works every odd job he could find. He works for the synagogue. My daughter works for the synagogue. Whatever odd job she can get in babysitting. They do these things because it's the responsible thing to do. None of these jobs give you a corner office. None of these jobs give you a chauffeur. None of these jobs give you courtside seats at the Knicks or something like that, but they do them because that's what responsible people do. The entitlement of this generation to say, I deserve this job. Why? Why are you qualified for it? What training did you have? The people I know who are the most successful are not the lawyers who went to law school. They're the lawyers who went to law school but also clerked every single summer, but also did scut work at every law firm they possibly could, moving boxes, filing paperwork, answering phones every single summer. Who are the doctors I know who are most successful? The doctors who worked in labs, who even were mopping floors in labs just to be close to that. They're the ones who are most successful. Same thing with accountants, same thing with everything else. You don't get presented these things on a silver platter. You have to earn them. Is it going to be hard in the short term? Sure. It's going to pay off in the long term if you do it right. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. At Coachella this weekend, they were cheering the same things we heard in Nazi Germany, which is really, really horrifying when the world said never again. We'll tell you what happened when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Don't forget, coming up at 4:45 is your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including two tickets to an advanced screening of The Accountant 2, starring Ben Affleck. Yes, my friends, good prizes while Mike and I review the latest movies. Good stuff. Also, just want to remind everybody, call the legislative hotline at 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. And say no to the property tax increases. Looks like the Democrats pulled a fast one on the media, and so many outlets are still reporting that they have abandoned their goal of increasing your property taxes. Give them a call, 1-800-562-6000, and say no to that increase. For those of you who don't know what Coachella is a rock concert festival that goes on for a while, actually. It's still going on. It was going on last week. It's still going on now, where you pay hundreds of dollars to go hear these musical acts. Well, apparently there was an Irish rap group called Kneecap. I'm not familiar with their work, except for they put up on screen Free Palestine, F Israel. Charming. And then they were leading the crowd in chanting these kind of things. Green Day did the exact same thing. And in fact, there are plenty of other groups in this lineup that are just fully anti-Semitic. We're not talking about Nazi Germany. We're talking about California in 2025. That is supposed to be one of the most progressive states in the Union. On Friday, we interviewed John Odrasik from Five for Fighting. He was telling us about the new song that he released together with one of the hostage families, a new version of his song Superman, to advocate for the release of the hostages still being held by Hamas. Now, Five for Fighting is a wonderful group, but there are some groups with a bigger footprint that have either been completely silent on this or have been on the other side of this, which is beyond insane. When we had John on the show last week, he called out plenty of artists who have been silent from all of this, saying, you know what, if Bruce Springsteen, if Bono, if Barbra Streisand had all come out supporting Israel and calling for the release of hostages, he said he thinks we'd be in a different place. And he's not wrong, by the way. And you may think, how does that stuff move public opinion? It does. It does. So look at where we were at when Donald Trump came into office. We literally had people marching in the streets advocating for a terrorist organization. And you know what? It hasn't changed. At Columbia today, you had a bunch of students chain themselves to the fence to advocate for a terrorist organization. They're advocating for terrorist supporters and actual people who are printing up material on behalf of Hamas, who are here on student visas, not to be deported, which is beyond crazy, beyond insane. This is the kind of stuff that is happening in the music industry. This is the kind of stuff that's happening in Hollywood. And people wonder why they don't watch their garbage anymore. America is moving back to a more conservative, more traditional ideology. And what's happening is you have the left pushing back more and more and more. So people who paid $600 a ticket to be at Coachella are cheering on behalf of a terrorist organization? It just shows the complete ignorance and lack of understanding of what's actually happening in the world. You look at these students who are on college campuses. They don't get it, or they do, and that's even worse. They're being led around by people who do get it, which is even more horrifying that they're on the other side. It's actually a little scary at this point. Somebody said, oh, Ari, it's called Islamophobia. I go, well, of course it's Islamophobia. If somebody wanted to blow you up, how'd you feel about it? You'd be afraid of them too. I'm glad we have things that protect people in this day and age from craziness like that. So we're looking at now University of Washington is saying that they're predicting cutbacks in some of their other schools. Good. They're anticipating that's only a matter of time until the Trump administration comes for them. Trump administration now is being sued by Harvard. Harvard would rather sue the Trump administration, rather lose billions in federal funding than admit they have an anti-Semitism problem and deal with it. So Harvard is literally saying, you know what? We want to keep those anti-Semites on campus. We want to keep those anti-American, anti-Western civilization, pro-communism, anti-capitalist people on campus who are here by our invitation on student visas that actually address the problems on campus. They would rather risk civil rights violations than actually address any of these issues, which should concern everybody. Harvard was considered the pinnacle of our institutions of higher learning. Harvard and Yale were up there. And look at what has happened to these campuses because they were taken over by the woke mind virus. Basically, what you had was all these professors from the 1960s who want to brainwash new generations, and that's what's been happening for decades. 4 decades. This is nothing new. This is exactly what a lot of those protests in the 1960s were all about. Pro-communism, anti-capitalism, anti-Western civilization. That's what this is. This is just its latest form. When you let all these professors have tenure that have nothing to teach except for anti-Americanism, this is what you get because this is what they did for years. Where now you have thousands of people at Coachella saying, yeah, pretty much the same things you'd be hearing out of Nazi Germany if they used the same colloquial as we did today. It's really, really horrifying. Let's switch over to some good news when we come back, my friends. Your chance to win 2 tickets to an advanced screening of The Accountant during our Real Deal giveaway as Mike and I review the latest movies and entertainment news. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. my knowledge of Rainier beer comes from that I pass the R anytime I go on I-5. I know where that brewery was. I know when it turned into Tully's Coffee. I know when it went back to Rainier Brewery. I know the story of Georgetown joining the city of Seattle and beer brewing getting banned. I know all that. I know what I've seen from the commercials of Rainier beer that used to be at the old version of the Museum of History and Industry before it moved to the new location. In the new location, I've seen the signs. That's what I know from Rainier beer, which is actually probably more than most non-locals know about Rainier beer. I have never had Rainier beer because I don't drink beer. And that's about where my knowledge of this ends. But there's a new documentary out that locals are sure to find interesting that Mike went to see. Mike, tell us about it.
Yeah. Both me and Mr. KVI went to go check out Rainier: A Beer Odyssey. It's a independent feature-length documentary movie. It's based on, it tells the story of the iconic, groundbreaking, memorable commercials for Rainier beer that ran on TV from 1974 to 1987. So a lot of Pacific Northwest iconography, like the Rainier beers with the legs on them, and beer crossing, and Rainier beer and all of that other stuff. Folks that things that have been entwined with when you think of the Pacific Northwest. There are certain imagery that kind of comes to mind, and a lot of it is these Rainier beer commercials. And basically the documentary kind of tells the story about Rainier beer is kind of like a whole thing, kind of a Northwest brewing institution, but also how the evolution of their TV commercials. They started very, kind of bland and straightforward, but then this ad agency gets involved and they have all these crazy off-the-wall obscure ideas, but with the Pacific Northwest twist. And then that's where it really kind of starts getting into the lexicon there. And that's kind of what they talk about. Basically, they have about 100 hours of footage that they've gotten from the Washington State Historical Society. And really, it's about the history, it's about the people, but also it's about the production of the commercials. This is very much a documentary type of thing. So it may not be for everybody, but I found it incredibly fascinating. This is, go ahead.
Yeah, just one question.
Yeah.
So is it more about the commercials and thereby tells the history of Rainier beer, or is it more about Rainier beer and then tells the history of the commercials?
That one, the second one.
Okay.
And one of the things, so me and Kevin are kind of film geek kind of things, and one of the fascinating things was the actual making of the famous motorcycle commercials. They go to Mount Rainier and they film hours and hours and hours of this motorcycle just driving by a street, and they talk about how they edited it and put it together. It gets very techie there, but it was very fascinating though, because it puts new texture on things that we just knew from TV commercials. But it was really cool to kind of see the story and the legacy. And it's fun as hell. It's a really fun documentary. The folks that they talk to are very interesting, and it is a very Seattle thing. And it basically ends in 2023 when basically the iconic red R is returned to the top of the old Rainier Brewery. So it kind of has a beginning, a middle, and an end, storytelling wise. And Rainier beer, it's kind of a weird Northwest icon. That is kind of my beverage of choice when I'm drinking lower quality beer with my Jack shots when I'm going to local pubs or events or things like that, concerts and whatnot. So it's very much like a local embedded thing that I didn't even really have a taste for until a couple years ago. But I'm just I'm at a concert and I'm just I want to drink water, but I need something with a little more kick, and that's kind of the beginning of my Rainier phase. But it is currently making the rounds. We saw it at the SIF Uptown. It's no longer playing there, but coming up next, it is playing at the North Bend Theater this weekend, April 24th through the 27th. And then later in the summer, it'll have a run at the Everett Historic Theater, the Historic Everett Theater. That's the only place you could see it currently. It's making the independent art house circuit. So you have to go to a theater to see. The website is rainierbeermovie.com. And it's got trailers and more information and all that other fun stuff. Check it out. It's a lot of fun.
And remember, by supporting movies like this in theaters during their limited runs, that's how they get bigger releases, and that's how they get released on demand also. Before I forget, your chance to win two tickets to The Accountant 2, an advanced screening starring Ben Affleck. See The Accountant 2 in theaters on April 25th. It's basically Batman, Ben Affleck, and John Bernthal, who's the Punisher, versus the mob. This is the movie you want to see. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes, be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win two tickets to an advanced screening of The Accountant starring Ben Affleck and John Bernthal. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the latest on the death of Pope Francis. What's next for Catholicism? Which direction do you want it to go? We'll have the details for you. Plus, world's reaction. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Congratulations to Joris in Federal Way. You are the proud winner of 2 tickets to the Accountant 2 in advanced screening. Your next chance to win is coming up at 5:45. But before we get to any of that, time to talk about the Rona again, my friends.
We are going to die. We are going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die. It's not today.
It is absolutely killing me that Andrew Cuomo is currently in the polls, the front runner to be the mayor of New York, assuming he survives the Democratic primary. Now, I am no fan of Eric Adams. And I know a lot of people say, oh, Eric Adams, he's great. Now he wants to fight illegal immigration. Yeah, it's amazing how all of a sudden when you get hit with charges, you'll go any direction, and say, oh, I'm going to work with the president now. What'd you do the years before that? Okay, but whatever. Everybody I know who's from New York does not like Eric Adams at all. But Andrew Cuomo, this is going to be his return to glory? Are you kidding me? Well, new press release came out today. So, we now have, after the Biden Justice Department refused to act today, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Chairman James Comer resent a criminal referral to the Attorney General Pam Bondi recommending former New York Governor Andrew M. Cuomo be charged with making false statements to Congress. Evidence and witness testimony gathered suggests Mr. Cuomo knowingly and willfully made false statements to the Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic on numerous occasions about material aspects of New York's COVID-19 nursing home disaster and the ensuing cover-up. The Select Committee's investigation exposes Mr. Cuomo's deliberate, self-serving effort to dodge responsibility for the thousands of lives lost in New York's nursing homes during the pandemic. Now, what's going to happen is the left is immediately going to claim this is political retribution. This should have happened under the Biden administration. And it didn't. Why? Because he's a Democrat. Also, what happened? Let's remember why he left office. He didn't leave office because of the hundreds of people that died in New York nursing homes. No. That's not why he left office. He left office because of a sex scandal. So, shouldn't we be pursuing the sex scandal thing at the same time? Shouldn't we be going after that? Maybe Letitia James is a little too busy to bring charges against Andrew Cuomo right now. Chairman Comer said in a statement, Andrew Cuomo is a man with a history of corruption and deceit, now caught red-handed lying to Congress during the Select Subcommittee's investigation into the COVID-19 nursing home tragedy in New York. This wasn't a slip-up. It was a calculated cover-up by a man seeking to shield himself from responsibility for the devastating loss of life in New York's nursing homes. Let's be clear, lying to Congress is a federal crime. Mr. Cuomo must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The House Oversight Committee is prepared to fully cooperate with the Justice Department's investigation into Andrew Cuomo's actions and ensure he is held to account. Let's remember some of the things he did. So you bring in the USS Liberty, the hospital ship, and you would think, you know what, if this virus is as deadly as everybody's saying and as contagious as everybody's saying, maybe we should send the people with the virus to the hospital ship so they can be treated there. Or if you really want to send them back to the nursing homes, why don't we take the people out of the nursing homes and send them to the hospital ship? Any permutation of that considered by anybody? Do you know the Javits Center in New York? For those of you who don't live in New York, it's a massive, massive convention center in Manhattan. And that's the one that Hillary Clinton was standing under because she wanted the glass ceiling to be broken, and it didn't happen because Donald Trump beat her. So they have the Javits Center all set up, ready to go to receive patients, and they didn't get sent there. Instead, what did Cuomo do? He sent the COVID-positive patients into the nursing homes. You know why he didn't go down for this? Because then every Democrat governor who did the exact same thing would go down for the exact same thing, like Jay Inslee, like Gretchen Whitmer, like Gavin Newsom. They all did it across the board. We have the orders from Jay Inslee. It was on their website. In fact, that's when Inslee's crew started getting snarky with me. When I started asking if they regretted it, requests for comment, that's when they started giving me attitude when I was discovering all this stuff. According to the statement from the Committee on Oversight, overwhelming evidence uncovered by the Select Committee proves that Mr. Cuomo reviewed, edited, even drafted portions of purportedly independent and peer-reviewed New York State Department of Health reports that were used to combat criticism of his administration's pandemic-era nursing home policies. This report lowballed nursing home fatalities and blamed nursing home staff for causing excess COVID-19 deaths. During Mr. Cuomo's transcribed interview in June, he testified he was not involved in the review or drafting this report. He did not have any discussions about a peer review of the report, and he did not have any knowledge of individuals outside the New York State Department of Health reviewing the report. Each of these statements are demonstrably false. In October 2024, the Select Subcommittee recommended the DOJ review the evidence laid out in criminal referral and immediately evaluate criminal charges against Mr. Cuomo. Yeah, 1,000%. In fact, they gave a whole timeline. It's a massive timeline of his complete cover-up. So they got here March 25th, 2020, the Cuomo administration recklessly directed New York nursing homes and long-term care facilities to admit COVID-19 positive and potentially COVID positive patients. As a result, New York's most vulnerable population was recklessly exposed to COVID-19. What did we know at the beginning of this thing? We knew kids were not affected. We knew the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions were affected. So what did government do? Because government is stupid. Oh, let's close the schools and open the nursing homes. You did the complete opposite of what you should have done. July 6, 2020, the New York State Department of Health released a report alleging nursing home staff, not the March 25th directive, caused excess COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes. So those first responders that you guys were praising as the front line of defense when they weren't doing flash mob synchronized dancing, choreographed dances, you were blaming them for this, but really it was your stupid order that did this. According to witness testimony and new documents revealed in the Select Subcommittee's referral, Mr. Cuomo personally drafted and edited portions of this purportedly independent and peer-reviewed report. January 28th, 2021, New York State Attorney General Letitia James released an investigative report claiming in part that Mr. Cuomo and his team undercounted the total number of nursing home deaths by as much as 50%, because at that point, he's trying to hold on to his political life. May 19th, 2023, the Select Subcommittee. Oh, wait, that's from Letitia James. She is most definitely not a member of the Republican Party. May 19th, 2023, the Select Subcommittee began its investigation into New York pandemic's response and the disastrous March 25th directive. As part of this investigation, the Select Subcommittee conducted transcribed interviews with notable former New York State officials, such as Dr. Howard Zucker, Dr. Eleanor Adams, Dr. James Molotros, Dr. Gareth Rhodes, Miss Linda Lacewell, Miss Elizabeth Garvey, and Miss Melissa DeRosa, all the people who are part of the Department of Health and Cuomo's administration. You know what I would love to see them do? The exact same thing here in Washington State, because you might say Jay Inslee's gone. What role did our Attorney General at the time play in that? Oh, you mean Bob Ferguson? That's right. Where was he during all of this? Where were all the other people who moved on to other positions inside our state and local governments? Where are they? What roles did they all play in this? Because you know Jay Inslee's responsible for about a whole bunch of nursing home deaths because he had almost an exact word-for-word order, as Cuomo did. Almost the exact same one. We could go through this whole thing, but this press release details the entire cover-up from top to bottom. And all the Democrat governors had the exact same order. Now, it's predictable what's going to happen from the left. Either the mainstream media is going to completely ignore this story because now they want Cuomo back in power, which what happened to Believe All Women? What happened to that? Now they don't care all of a sudden. They just want their guy back. It's amazing to me that New Yorkers could be this stupid that he's polling this highly. So the mainstream media is either going to say, see, Trump's using the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, or they're going to completely ignore it. My bet is actually try to ignore it. Why? They don't want to talk about COVID. If we have the COVID discussion, they're in trouble. As we reported last week, the White House website on COVID has been replaced with all the true stuff about the COVID lab leak. Gee, where did that virus come from? Oh, it must have been a bat. Don't forget, it's like the 5-year anniversary of when Fauci said that in front of Donald Trump, said Donald Trump was flat out wrong, and that it actually came from people eating bats. Yes, that was something Fauci actually said because he was trying desperately to avoid responsibility for the amount of money he gave to that lab in Wuhan. That is what he did, which is beyond crazy, by the way. Beyond crazy. We were living in the craziest times during COVID. I was actually discussing this with my brother today. I was discussing how crazy the COVID times were and how, like, the first week, ooh, fun, unscheduled vacation, bonding time with the kids. Then week 2, kids start getting a little irritating and you start running out of activities to do because everything's closed. Then week 3, you're like, this is really dumb. And then by what? Week 6 of 2 weeks to flatten the curve? Wait a second. Why is everybody allowed to protest, but I'm not allowed to go to weddings or funerals or synagogue or church or anything like that? It's beyond crazy. Beyond crazy. And who is one of the people responsible for this mess? Jay Inslee. Jay Inslee, who had emergency powers for 975 days, is suffering from the worst case of Trump derangement syndrome I have ever seen. I don't know what Jay Inslee is doing with his time, aside from going on Twitter and bashing Trump. That's all the guy does all day long. Keeps calling him a tyrant. Jay, bubby. I hate to tell you this, but if you have emergency powers for 975 days, you are a tyrant in Washington for 975 days. And then what does he do? Because it's Easter weekend. Jay Inslee, who, let's be real, this is a guy who claims to be whatever religion he claims to be, but doesn't actually care about religion, because this is the guy who shut down the churches and shut down the synagogues and shut down the mosques and shut down the religious schools and had a war on anything that was religious while he was in office. Wrote this post for Easter. He didn't say Happy Easter and then write this post. This was his Easter post. Pretty sure that Jesus of Nazareth would never admit a soul was committed to hell by mistake and then do nothing to fix the error. On this Easter, let us recognize one more difference between the Son of God and the son of Fred Trump. And of course, he's talking about Abreu Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador, the MS-13 gang member. That's his post for Easter. That's how Jay Inslee likes his religion, able to use politically. So a lot of people are talking about Pope Francis passing away. And I'm kind of curious about your thoughts of this situation. I'm not Catholic. I'm not Christian. I don't want to weigh in on this. My issues with Pope Francis come to the fact that he supported the Palestinian cause against Israel. Hamas put out a statement mourning his death today. Hamas said he was a great supporter of Palestinian rights, expressing his firm stance against the war and genocide in the Gaza Strip in his last months of his life. He leaves behind a huge void that is difficult to fill. He literally took pictures with a baby Jesus in a Palestinian keffiyeh during the nativity scene that was on display in the Vatican earlier this year. So for me, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Pope Francis, and us Jews have not had the best relationships with the popes in the past. There have been some pretty bad ones to us Jews. But you know what? Right now, Jews got pretty good relationship with Christians, pretty good relationships with Catholics. And a lot of people saw Pope Francis as kind of the woke pope, for lack of a better word, a guy who was willing to be political, a guy who was in favor of mass illegal immigration, a guy who didn't want to meet with J.D. Vance because he held him responsible for shutting down mass illegal immigration to the United States. I'm kind of curious what you think about this. I just know this pope from his political stances, from his stances on seemingly far left positions. I want to know what you think, because maybe I'm way off base. This isn't my religion. Let me know what you think of the Pope. Of course, it's sad that a leader of a religion passes away. But I just know him from his political stuff. I don't know him from anything he said regarding religion. I just know how he always mixed it in with politics. Give us a call. Let us know what you think about the Pope's passing. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Give us a call or send us a text. Because looking at this Pope, for example, a lot of people go, he was the first Jesuit. He was a trailblazer. We expected a whole lot more from him, and we got the woke Pope instead. I'm kind of curious what you think. Now, Donald Trump was very gracious, actually, even given the Pope's woke tendencies. Donald Trump said, yeah, I'm going to his funeral. We're going to his funeral. He was a great man, because that's what you do when somebody dies. You mourn them. But I'm kind of curious what you guys think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. In fact, a reporter asked Donald Trump this weekend why he was mentioning Jesus in his statement about Easter. I kind of think those two go hand in hand, don't you?
You talked about Jesus in your opening statement. How important is this country right now?
Very important. It brings the country together. I mean, It's so important if we can do that. Religion, I said, bring religion back. Religion keeps you together. Such a great thing.
Yeah, now this is a guy who wasn't very religious. I mean, he's got grandkids who are religious. He's got children who are religious. But this is a guy who was clearly moved by what happened during the assassination attempt. You can see it. And there's been a much bigger emphasis on religion his second term than his first term in office. I do love this moment during the Easter Bunny appearance during the Easter egg hunt on the White House lawn this morning when Donald Trump was talking about the Easter Bunny under the Biden administration.
Do you remember the bunny with Joe Biden? Remember? Do you remember when the bunny took Joe Biden out? He's not taking Trump out. Anyway, that was a beautiful moment when the bunny saved Joe Biden.
That was pretty funny. Do you remember that? I mean, pretty tragic at the same time that Joe Biden didn't know where he was going, and the Easter Bunny, the full Easter Bunny mascot, comes along, waves him down, and sends him in another direction. Isn't it good to know that our country is not being run by a mascot? It's not being run by a person in a mascot whose identity we don't even know. That was the last administration. I will say today it was pretty funny having this other Easter Bunny mascot standing side by side with President Trump wherever he went during the Easter egg hunt today. I was actually giggling a lot about that. Now, actually, the media was also trying to make Signalgate happen again. NPR comes out with this report that because of a new Signal thread that allegedly contained classified documents, but they haven't really been able to show a lot of the receipts for that, that now the White House is considering getting rid of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Well, so far there hasn't been any truth to that. In fact, the White House has said the complete opposite. They said, no, we think he's doing a great job. Here's what the president said today.
I mean, I hear they're doing that whole thing again. Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thanks, Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Ask the Houthis how much dysfunction they have. There's none.
Yeah, exactly right. See, what's happening right now is the military has some of the highest recruiting numbers they've had in decades. We're restoring American military might, and we're taking out the Houthi rebels. And you would think the left would want the same thing because we all want Western values, but no, the left doesn't actually want those. So Pete Hegseth is their prime target. He has been since the first hearing. So the White House called out NPR for this fake news. Press secretary was on Fox News this morning.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring, so they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job, and the president stands strongly behind him.
I will say this, if you are taking flack, you are over the target, which means that Pete Hegseth is doing all the right things, and those people he fired, these disgruntled employees who leaked this fake information, it's clear they aren't happy that the swamp is actually being drained by Pete Hegseth and President Trump. When we come back, my friends, are more homeless encampments getting cleaned out? Must be an election coming up in Seattle. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and four tickets to the Puyallup RV Show. That's right, my friends. Yet another reason to always listen to Talk Radio 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I saw this article from the Seattle Times, as our friend Lars Larson would call it, the Daily Dead Fish Wrapper. It says Seattle breaks records on homeless tents removed, encampments cleared. Now, that sounds like a good thing, right? But then I go, that means you have record homeless tents and record homeless encampments. Just because you're clearing out more doesn't mean you're actually accomplishing anything. Now, I will grant you, downtown seems a little cleaner. And I would argue that's because a lot of the stuff is being pushed out of the core of downtown, back to the forested areas, and through the King County Regional Homeless Authority to the rest of King County. Now, this is exactly what Bruce Harrell and crew did when they were on the Seattle City Council. And a lot of the people who are in his administration were involved with the Seattle City Council, like Tim Burgess. This is exactly the kind of stuff they used to do. Out of sight, out of mind. It's not like they're actually getting them jobs. It's not like they're actually getting them treatment. It's not like they're actually getting them into housing. They haven't built enough housing to take care of that. According to the Seattle Times, Mayor Bruce Harrell said his State of the City address in February that the city's count of tents was down nearly 80% from 2022. They claim that's the result of Harrell making good on one of his campaign promises, homelessness, while disregarding another. They said he has followed through on the pledge to keep streets, parks, and public spaces open and clear through a relentless effort to remove tents whenever they appear. He has removed encampments more than 5,000 times in his first 3 years, far more than pre-pandemic numbers. Well, the numbers of encampments have increased exponentially since before the pandemic. Now, what the mayor didn't say is that there are more people living outside than ever, a fact he doesn't contest. Aha. See, you're encouraging more people to come here through the very services you're offering to the homeless people. He has not added homeless shelters like he said he would. In fact, Seattle has lost units each year under his watch. It's likely to lose even more as funding for them decreases. Stop right there. It's not a funding thing. You guys give tons of money to Homeless Inc., and you have never, ever done an audit of why is it not successful. You guys have never looked into that at all. As I said earlier today, the Democrats pulled a fast one. They pulled a bait and switch. They said, here's what we're going to do. We are not going to spike your property taxes. No, wait. We're just going to raise them as much as we want to cover education. So you're still going to spike our property taxes? And what's going to happen is they're going to say, well, without this, the children won't be able to go to school. Of course, what they're going to say is they're going to say, without more funding, we won't be able to provide the homeless services. What they won't tell you is that they have never done an audit of Homeless Inc. And if that audit of Homeless Inc. in Los Angeles showed that after $24 billion spent during Gavin Newsom's time in office, that money was a colossal waste and that the homeless problem only got worse, and now the feds are coming in to investigate because it was that bad, we're at the bottom of the totem pole. I mean, we've still spent billions, don't get me wrong, but I think we're probably about half or a third of what California, the state, has spent, and we've spent a lot of money. We've spent a lot of money and accomplished absolutely nothing. Now, the article says to hide from the city's escalating pace of encampment removals, homeless people say they are hiding deeper in the woods, where assaults, overdoses, and emergencies can go unnoticed. Some say they've given up on setting up a tent altogether, leaving them less visible but more vulnerable to the elements and predators, which actually would account for the fact that I see more people sleeping in alcoves like I used to when Bruce Harrell was on the Seattle City Council. So this is the kind of stuff that he's doing. Why is he doing it? Because he's running for re-election and he's worried. From what I hear, there are some scandals that might be about to hit the mayor's office. I'm not ready to go live with some of them yet, but I'm hearing some interesting rumors from sources at Seattle City Hall that we need to confirm. He's also facing competition from his left and from his right. Now, his right only helps the person on the farther left, but we'll see how this shakes out. So it's a little early. Usually they don't start clearing these homeless encampments until it's around the time of the primary. But it looks like Bruce Harrell is dialing up his effort now because he is so concerned. He needs a win Do you think there's any win around here for Bruce Harrell? I can't think of any. You disagree with me? Or you can name one of them. Give me a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, right here, this one from the 206, Harrell is a joke. And is only there because his wife is a big wig at Microsoft. He needs to go away. This one here from John. He says, Ari, they're giving out tents to replace the ones they already cleared. Portland does. Actually, we know that the activists here in Washington actually do that. That's exactly what they do. What they always do is they always set up an encampment just a few blocks away from the one that they cleared. We've seen this happen time and time again. I've watched it with my own two eyes. And these Antifa-related mutual aid groups will come in and give them out these little pieces of paper, these little notices to the people in the encampment and say, hey, if they're going to come sweep this encampment, just go to one right over here, and we'll take care of you. No problem whatsoever. Clearly, somebody in Seattle City Hall is giving out this information to the activists before the encampments are removed. So basically, this is just a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. It's not going to get better anytime soon. I think really we have to discuss cutting all the funding because this is what is bringing the people here from out of state. This is what is bringing the people here from out of city. If you're giving them free drugs and gift cards and phones and housing and apartments and whatever else it is, of course you're incentivizing people to come here. That's what is happening. And it looks like nobody actually wants to do the audit because then the very people that put them in power, Homeless Inc., which sends out the activists to door knock for them, then if they lose money, they're going to go find another candidate. And Bruce Harrell is desperate to make sure that doesn't happen and they don't go over to the lefty who's running against him. When we come back, my friends, the Fred Hutch Center says it is getting rid of its DEI department. Is that actually true, or are they just changing it a little bit? Our next guest has some opinions. She'll share them with us. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, back in February, the Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center right here in Seattle decided to abandon its DEI ideas, its DEI program, its DEI insanity. But a lot of you were skeptical, and a lot of you said, are they actually abandoning it, or are they just changing the name of it? Now, this all comes amid a lawsuit by a former employee who alleged discrimination and retaliation for raising concerns about the center's DEI culture, as well as President Donald Trump's executive order abolishing DEI because it's discriminatory. Joining us now on the KVI studio line, Tammy Weitzman, who's a veteran oncology social worker, who is the focus of this lawsuit against the Fred Hutch Center. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ari. Nice to be back on the show.
Such a pleasure. So it's been a while since we spoke to you. And actually, I think you're the one who sent me the articles about this happening at Fred Hutch. So since you've been at the forefront of the fight against this insanity at Fred Hutch, tell us what you thought when you first saw this.
Well, I have to say I'm certainly very glad to see the Cancer Center follow the Trump administration's directive to abolish their DEI program. I personally feel that it's really a clear step toward complying with the law. And I obviously did not feel that in my case with my lawsuit, given my lawsuit, the law was not upheld, which is why I filed suit. And it caused me real harm. So my feeling is that, and my wish is that hopefully now no one else should face or would face what I did. And I'm especially glad that colleagues at the Hutch can really now refocus on what I would say is their core mission, which is supporting and helping cancer patients and their families without all of these political distractions. And I hope that this change inspires not only people at the Hutch, but, really inspires workplaces everywhere to really prioritize fairness and respect for everyone.
Right, because it seems to me, I remember your case back when we spoke about it originally when it first got filed, was you were being discriminated against because you were Jewish and you didn't fit in the intersectional matrix that they had created over at the Fred Hutch Center. So what is this news that they're abandoning their DEI policies or changing them, which was their verbiage, if I recall? What does this do for your case?
Right, yeah. Well, my case was resolved. It was resolved last June of 2024. It was settled. It is over. It is now behind me. But of course, it was very traumatic for me when it happened a couple of years ago, and that does stay with you to a certain extent. But like I just said, I'm very glad to see that they're complying with President Trump and his directive and his administration's directive. Because, all of these hospitals will not receive funding, if you are an institution that is reliant upon federal funding, you won't receive it because President Trump and his administration believe, like I do, that DEI creates environments where only certain viewpoints are tolerated by certain people. Right? It takes people and it puts people into buckets of winners and buckets of losers. And in my situation, I think you recall, I was always told by my boss that I'm not speaking up enough. My manager was very, very vocal in terms of telling me you're not speaking up enough in these DEI meetings, which were mandatory, by the way. And so I decided to speak out during one of them and described a scenario and a personal experience I had in my youth when I was targeted there was anti-Semitic behavior. And in return, I was told, but you're white, so you can really pass. It's okay, And so, it's not okay. I think about 6 million people who are like me, look like me, and practice my faith. They couldn't pass 80 years ago, 70 years ago. They still can't pass today. So I remember feeling so slighted and so taken aback and so hurt and so discouraged that I was being told that. And of course, that was in front of my peers and colleagues, which made it all the more difficult. But it angered me very much. You know, DEI really champions these, in quotes, safe spaces. But too often that promise doesn't extend to everybody, does it? Doesn't extend if you're white, doesn't extend if you're conservative, certainly doesn't extend if you're Jewish. So I'm hopeful now with this out of the way that people will just be able to focus on coming to work and doing the work and supporting the mission of the Cancer Center, which they stated so clearly, which every cancer center states so clearly, and just really focus on supporting families, supporting patients, getting through treatment, aftercare, because that's really what it's about. You know, you know, and Ari, this matters for anyone in this country who is working a 9 to 5. People deserve a job where they're judged for their work, not their identity. Fairness really isn't about tilting the scales, is it? It's really about keeping them balanced for all, for everyone. And it wasn't balanced for me. You know, DEI initiatives really hone in on and prioritize ideology or group identity over, I would say, neutral merit-based standards, you know. And as a social worker, I care deeply about people. I care deeply about every person who is in my care. But you know, it's not just about my field. It's about every workplace, Ari, from classrooms to cubicles. And I feel very, very strongly about this, given what has transpired with me. When DEI excludes, when DEI silences, and when DEI divides, it strays from justice. It just strays from justice, and it strays from fairness. You know, the Constitution of the United States of America calls for equal treatment, calls for free speech, and calls for unity. So my feeling is, let's focus on building workplaces everywhere, not just in medical schools or cancer centers or other institutions, but everywhere, where all of our voices are heard.
Yeah.
And right, where we're all heard, we all have a place at the table, we all have a voice at the table, and where we're judged by our work, not our identities. To me, that's the path to true fairness, and that is really, truly where we all rise together, and that should be our focus. How can we all rise together?
I completely agree. Tammy Weitzman, thank you so much for being part of the fight. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. Thank you so much for sharing the good news with us, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to your good news giveaway, how about some good news headlines for you? This one from CBS 12 out of Venice, Florida. Florida man has 25 million reasons to smile. The Florida lottery announced on Friday that Venice resident Kyle Lindquist claimed a $25 million from the 500 times the cash game. Lottery officials say Lindquist bought his winning ticket from Circle K gas station at 101 U.S. Highway 41 Bypass South with a 1 in 4.23 chance of winning. I think that's 2.3 million chance of winning. Lindquist turned $50 into the $25 top prize. I think that's $25 million too, guys. You got to work on those zeros there. Yes. Perhaps my guess would be recent graduate of the public school system. 45-year-old man who chose to receive his winnings as a one-time lump sum payment of $16 million, according to lottery officials. The gas station will receive a $50,000 bonus commission for selling the winning ticket. That's a good one there. Here's another one for you. This one, a little bit more religious in nature. On Easter Sunday, April 20th, American Idol premiered a powerful new episode titled Songs of Faith, spotlighting the rich legacy of Christian and gospel music in the United States. In a special twist, judges Luke Bryan, Carrie Underwood, and Lionel Richie will leave their seats and took the stage, delivering heartfelt performances of worship and gospel classics that reflected the show's tribute to spiritual traditions. CCM Magazine reached out to the co-creator of American Idol, who said, "I think it's incredible that American Idol is doing a 3-hour Easter special. For ABC and Disney to take such a bold stand on this holy day and celebrate worship music is truly inspirational. When I first began working on American Idol during the Fox years, there was an unspoken rule to steer clear of anything overtly religious or faith-based. The goal was to keep the show secular, broad, and inclusive to avoid alienating any viewers." He went on to say, "But I noticed that started to shift the year Carrie Underwood took the stage. It was clear she wasn't just a remarkable talent. She was a woman of deep faith. That faith came through even more clearly in songs like Jesus Take the Wheel. The real turning point, though, came in 2008 during the Idol Gives Back charity special when the top 8 finalists asked to perform Shout to the Lord. I remember getting flooded with calls from Christian friends who said they were thrilled to hear a worship song performed in primetime television. Now in season 23, Carrie Underwood is back, this time as a judge with her influence and the support of Luke Bryan, Lionel Richie, and Jelly Roll. I have no doubt this Easter special will be powerful, which it was. I'm genuinely excited to see the Jesus Resurrection Day honored on one of the biggest entertainment platforms in the world, which is actually a huge, huge deal. Because don't forget, we're talking about Disney now. We're talking about other networks now. And that they're embracing this actually shows nature is healing, times are changing, where they go, we're not shying away from this stuff anymore. And if the majority of people who helped elect President Trump were actually people of faith, then this is a market they want to tap into. They want more of these listeners back. Plus, don't forget how many they lost from Disney going woke. So this is actually a very, very smart move to try and get people of faith back who probably haven't watched the show in years, which is why so many members of conservative media are picking up this story today, because that seems to be exactly what happened. I saw a lot of people in my social media feed talking about the amazing performances on American Idol. I'm like, wait, now that show's still on the air? I don't watch a lot of reality television. I remember when American Idol premiered, what was it, my first year of college? Second year of college. No, my first year of college. That's when American Idol came out. That's right. We used to love watching the disastrous auditions. That's what we liked about that show. So it's amazing that that show is still on the air 23 years later. It's amazing that the network that actually takes care of the show is finally recognizing that give the people of faith a little bit and they'll stop criticizing you and they may actually come back as viewers. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union, with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 4 tickets to the Puyallup RV Show May 1st through 4th. With over a dozen local dealers, 50 manufacturers' brands, and over 400 different models, You can see and compare the most popular RVs on the market today, along with some new innovative floor plans and custom models. Special show pricing and financing from the dealers make this your best opportunity to shop and compare. Get your tickets today at PuyalluPRVShow.com. That's PuyalluPRVShow.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card. A copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement, and 4 tickets to the Puyallup RV Show May 1st through 4th. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And I'm looking out over the bay, and even though it's cloudy today, my God, we are so lucky to live in such an amazing, beautiful place. I was so glad to enjoy the weekend, actually enjoying the weather, except for that day where it was a massive rainstorm. But I'm looking forward to spring. I'm looking forward to summer because I can see it is right around the corner. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. But fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.